Hello, MindGrapes universe. Welcome to our third installment of the MindGrapes podcast. I am Clark Cave, and I am joined by Trent Reese.
Great to be here. Clark, we missed you last week. We had some substitutes fill in. Looks like your eyes are nice and bloodshot, being a new father and all, but happy to have you back on the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes, I do have a 9-day-old at home right now, a little girl, and I'll share that story really quick.
Go for it.
So the Friday before last, my wife and I, Taylor and I, were sitting on the couch at 3:30. I think we were watching 1883, but she was taking a nap and her eyes pop open and she says, "I think my water broke." And I was a bit in shock because, full disclosure, I hadn't really fully packed my go bag. So there were some things like, okay, yeah, I need to put those things in there really quick. And so we call the hospital, we call the women's clinic she's a part of. They tell us to go into the hospital. I start putting all this stuff together, and then I don't remember how to collapse the doona. Do you know the doona, which is a car seat and a stroller?
No idea.
So I don't even know how to collapse it. So her water's broken. We need to move out the door, and I'm watching a YouTube video how to collapse the doona. But 2 hours later, we had a baby. It couldn't have been a more efficient process. So this is our first, and it is definitely a tiring experience. People always say that, but it's when you go through it, it's a lot of work, but totally worth it.
It caught me off guard too, because we were texting back and forth. We were talking about our plan for last week's podcast and trying to get that all set up. And it was Friday afternoon, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're trying to get that figured out. And then all of a sudden, it goes dark. I didn't hear from you for 30, 40 minutes. And then you post a message in Slack saying, "We're in labor." Yeah. I was like, wait, what? Because she was 2 weeks early, 3 weeks early.
2 or 3, yeah.
Yeah. And so I was like, was not expecting this at all. But we're like, okay, we got it handled. Just, again, super happy for you guys.
Thanks, man.
Carson's a beautiful little girl.
Yeah.
Taylor handled it like a champ. You talked about how it was so quick, but I think if there's one way you want to do it, it's like that, where Seriously. It's like water breaks, go to the hospital.
She gave me a hard time, but I'm like, if we could do this thing in the parking lot, because people go into labor for 36 hours. So it's that doesn't sound like the best use of your time, if you know what I mean. So, but it was awesome. You have one on the way. We're very excited. Yeah,
here in the next 2 weeks, really.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll draft up a contract if you want. I'll accept 2 camels. I'm just kidding. Okay. So back into it, man. I'm glad to be back.
Yeah.
So why don't I ask you, what's on your MindGrapes this week?
Okay. So it's been a busy week. I think we're both students, full-time master's students. So it's been pretty crazy with school, keeping up with the readings and everything. And starting to knock out some papers. But I was able to dig into some shows and watch a few this week. Some of them we talked about last weekend, like Arcane. Mm-hmm. That was a recommendation from Jackie on the show. I watched about 4 episodes of Arcane, which for those of you listening that don't know what it is, it's a League of Legends animated show. And I went into it with kind of low expectations, but wow, I'm kind of floored by it. The animation is great. The storyline is great. The character development is great. So I'm really into it, and it's a show that I'm going to try to finish up here in the next couple weeks. But being a dad, and you will find out. You are finding out. It's difficult to really sit down and binge watch like I used to as a college student.
Seriously.
Yeah. So Arcane is one of those that I was watching this week. I watched another episode of The Dropout, which so far has lived up to my own hype. Mm-hmm. I'm super into it. I think it's a great storyline. Amanda Seyfried does a great job playing Elizabeth Holmes. I actually watched a 2020 documentary that talked about The Dropout, the podcast they initially did, because I didn't know it was a podcast before.
Oh yeah.
But they did a show based off of the podcast. Mm-hmm. And they did side-by-side comparisons of Amanda Seyfried and Elizabeth Holmes. And so far, Amanda Seyfried's knocking it out of the park.
Oh, my gosh.
So great show. They're releasing episodes every week, so that's one that I'm keeping up on. And then another one that I talked about last week was Super Pumped, which is talking about the startup Uber. And yeah, I'm really into that too so far. They're releasing episodes every week. So I have a good, healthy list of shows that I'm watching and keeping up with week to week. So what about you? What's on your mind grapes? I'm sure you haven't been able to watch too much over the past week with the newborn.
No. Unfortunately, I was relegated to what they have available in the hospital, which you'll find out very soon. Maybe, we should start a business for the Mind Grapes, like where you can play your Mind Grapes directly on your hospital TV. But so I'm going through, while you mention these movies, I'm actually going through on the Mind Grapes app so you can...
For those that are watching the video, because we do an audio stream every week that is basically just an audio cut. But we also do we have a YouTube channel too where we upload the video file. So one thing we're going to try to do this week is we're actually going to demo the app and go through and follow along all the movies and shows that we're talking about. Because one of the comments that we got from our listeners was, it's great. I love listening to what you guys are watching and talking about and everything. But what does the app do? So as we're going through the podcast, we're going to demo the app on video. For those of you that want to see it, just go over to our YouTube page. You just type in Mind Grapes, and we upload videos every week. We have little clickbait videos that we throw on there every week too. But yeah, it's just great to be able to see what the app can do because we think it has huge value. And for those of you that struggle to find movies and TV shows on all of the various streaming services that are out there, we think that this is a good solution to help you do that.
Absolutely. So, what I'm pulling up now. So, on my Mind Grapes, basically before our daughter was born, I was watching 1883. 1883.
Huge fan of that show too.
Really? So the overview is the Dutton family as they embark on a journey west to the Great Plains toward the last bastion of untamed America, a stark retelling of Western expansion. I loved this series going into it. Mm-hmm. I thought the acting was awesome. I thought the fight scenes were incredible. But I started to wean off. It started to become less and less interesting to me. As the actress Isabel May, who plays Elsa Dutton, she becomes an Indian and she learns the Indian language. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention, and she starts wearing Indian clothes and stuff and I just, that part lost me.
You think it kind of jumped the shark a little bit?
It was, I thought it was supposed to be, it was so realistic in the beginning and then I understand why you wanted to take the storyline in an interesting direction because literally you're just filming people
moving west,
really slow.
Yeah,
right. I think they could have done a lot more with that. I think there were some, it hit some of the woke beats, but it wasn't in your face. Overall, but still really, really well done.
Yeah.
I have not given it a thumbs up or thumbs down. Haven't really finished it. But I don't know if I'm going to continue.
Yeah, you want some time to think on it a little bit. I agree with a lot of your sentiments. I think it's beautifully shot.
Oh my gosh.
I think the acting, for the most part, is incredible. I think it has a good shot at winning some awards coming up because of how the quality of the show. You can tell they poured a ton of money in there doing the character development, the costumes and everything, and just the locations that they shoot at. It's really amazing. I also agree that there were some moments where I think it did jump ship a little bit. If they just kind of stayed on track, I think it could have been a lot better.
Yeah. I feel like it went a little bit the way of The Walking Dead. Do you ever watch that series?
I watched maybe the first 2 seasons, and then I couldn't take much more of it.
Exactly. So you've got a very, very limited storyline. And you've got certain action features. In that case, it's being attacked by zombies. In this case, being attacked by bandits. But you have to find ways to fill in the point or the pieces where you're not seeing so much action. So you do it with soliloquy and drama and all of these things. I gotta find myself. These things that you don't. If you're moving west. You don't really have a lot of food.
Yeah.
You're worried about your life. People are dying left and right, getting run over by wagon wheels.
being killed by bandits.
I think you're so low on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you're not really worried about what am I going to do with my future or the things moving forward. So that's one of those things. I think modern TV shows, it's required, but I guess they just have to fill in a certain number of episodes, right?
Yeah.
So you have to fill it in with that stuff
and you have to have those cliffhangers at the end of each episode that
exactly.
keeps people watching the next one.
And even though it's not really realistic, but what I do love in our modern society where everyone has an iPhone and everyone thinks the world started yesterday. This is a stark reminder of what life used to be like.
Yeah.
When the Comanche Indians, I don't know if we have kids listening to this, but Comanche Indians were like vicious.
Yeah.
If you ever, do some research. The Comanche Indians, if they came across a group of traveling pioneers, they would kill the babies, and then if they captured the men, they would give them over to the women to torture because the women enjoyed torturing,
I'll just say this is one topic I didn't think we were going to get on this week's podcast, but we're there. The one show, okay, so 1883, right, is like the prequel to Yellowstone.
Right.
Now, Paramount is doing another spinoff of Yellowstone, and this is a show that I'm actually really excited about. I don't think it's going to come out for another year or two, but it's called 4 Sixes. It's basically following Jimmy as he's down in, North Texas in the Fort Worth area on a ranch.
Who's the main actor?
Jimmy is Jefferson White. But I think he is a great actor in the main Yellowstone series, and this is a show that I'm really excited about. I think they did a really good job with the character development of Jimmy, and I think by the end of this past season of Yellowstone, you get really invested in him as a character, and so I think it's a great time for them to do a 4 Sixes spinoff. The one thing I hope they don't do, I hope they don't wait too long in order to launch this series, because I think now is like the great time where you're invested in this character. So 4 Sixes is one that I'm excited about, and I'm going to be keeping an eye on to see when they release it.
It's not even posted.
Yeah. I'm reading an article right now on my phone. It's saying it could be a year or two before they release it.
Well, that's overall, I think of all the things released during COVID, these are definitely top-notch and top quality.
Yeah.
There's so much garbage released over COVID. I think there were restrictions and maybe virtual collaboration is not something Hollywood is.
Yeah, and I'll actually say there was a show that I was watching religiously kind of going into 2019 or going into 2020 before really COVID kicked off. Yeah, absolutely. No, it's I was watching Billions. I'm a huge fan of that show.
Really?
Yeah, but all of a sudden, they took basically a year-long break between filming because of COVID, and since the shows came back, I've watched one episode of Billions.
Bad.
Yeah, well, it's not that it's bad, it's just I'm not invested anymore. I was in that binge mentality, and then all of a sudden I couldn't watch it for a year and a half. So that's another show that's on my watch list as I get time. That's one that I'm going to watch.
Yeah, Blair recommended that to me a long time ago. So that was one of the first things I put on my watch list.
Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe I never got into Suits or I feel like it has that similar vibe. If it does, I need to get into it.
Yeah, it's a good show. It is a really good show. I don't really have anything bad to say about it. I was watching it, binging it. Going into COVID. Yeah.
But one last thing on 1883. Faith Hill, she's really good.
She's a great actress.
And I'm looking at her right. Do you see what I'm what
Yeah.
She hasn't really been in much at all, ever.
No, and I'm just amazed too. One, she's a great singer. I think that's what she's known for. But I was really surprised with how good she was in 1883, and then also with Tim McGraw. Tim McGraw was great as an actor too.
He's great. Mm-hmm. He lost a ton of weight.
Yeah, when I saw him, I was like, "Is that really Tim McGraw?"
He looks great. Okay, so next on my watch list is the Addams Project, which came out yesterday.
Okay, this is one that you're gonna have to explain to me.
Oh, I don't know anything about it. I just know who has watched it so far? So we know Chris,
E
yeah,
and G-Day.
Chris and G-Day watched it. So
what's the basic synopsis of it?
I'll give it to you really quickly. So if you're on YouTube, you can kind of follow along. If you ever want to watch the trailer, that's available here. Here's the cast. Jennifer Garner's in it. And so after accidentally crash landing in 2022, time-traveling fighter pilot Adam Reed teams up with his 12-year-old self on a mission to save the future. Oh, I love that. Ryan Reynolds.
It's a pretty good cast so far. With Ryan Reynolds, Mark Ruffalo.
Yes, I have to say the last Ryan Reynolds film I watched, Red Notice, was trash.
Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of that. And then what was the other recent one that he did? Can you go?
His wife's bodyguard?
No, it was the one where he was in the video game. Free Guy. Yeah, I watched Free Guy last weekend too, and it was fun. It was entertaining. I think that they were trying to not market, but basically talk video games to the general population. So I think that there were so many things that was just exaggerated, and it entertained me. I watched the whole thing. It's not like I turned it off mid-movie, but I wasn't a huge fan. It's kind of one of those movies that I'm just like, meh.
Yeah, I think it was allegorical to represent, we don't need all this fighting. We need a utopian society, and people will enjoy playing a utopian society video game, which I don't know.
But I just want to know, what game. Yeah, I guess it's kind of true. What game do you go in and just the goal of the game is to kill NPCs? But I guess when you think of any video game that's not player versus player, it technically is player versus non-player character. So that was a stupid comment, but
I don't know. Everything in it was well done. So
entertaining movie.
Entertaining. I'd give it a thumbs up. So Addams Project, I'm really excited about watching that.
Yeah.
I am also. So I guess if this were Grapevines, which is a new feature we have coming out that allows people to invite other people to watch a movie, so you at least have stuff in common. I'm also watching The Dropout. I am now on episode 3.
That's where I'm at.
I listened to the Laundry podcast, The Dropout, and I think you and I have discussed this offline. I can't get enough Elizabeth Holmes. She's still so fascinating to me. And so far in The Dropout, this Hulu series, they make her seem extremely dorky and antisocial.
Yeah.
And vulnerable and insecure. I'm not sure if that's how she was in real life. I think the character development, it turns her from kind of this naive young girl to into someone who she starts believing her own stuff. But she's not the person who developed this.
We got your phone locked out.
Yeah, she's not the person who developed this science.
Yeah.
Right? I just have to say, the lady, what's her name? The lady who gives the lecture in the beginning, who says, these are bad ideas.
Yeah.
You've never met a patient. That is the stark reality of starting a business. Yeah,
it's one that we're running into kind of right now.
You don't know. You don't know what your customers are going to want.
Yep.
Sure, you would love to have something administered. So her first patent was a patch that read your labs and gave you medicine.
Yeah.
Which is an insane idea.
That technology exists to a degree somewhat today. I think you see some of those wearables now. I don't think it administers medication, but it does a lot of monitoring, which is kind of cool.
Back then the technology wasn't there, but the monitoring thing is monitoring your A1C, monitoring your blood sugar levels it's a great idea. I wonder if she gets royalties off that.
That's what I was wondering, the same thing.
Yeah. If so, she's gonna make a nice amount of money. But I love how that scene where she goes through and says, "You have to do the work. You can't just come up with crazy ideas." So I'd like to create a plane that uses nuclear cells to fly versus jet fuel. Great idea. It's just not. The technology, that's very novel technology that doesn't really exist. Actually, I'd really prefer time travel.
Yeah.
The Addams Project. I would rather.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that doesn't exist. So this girl, she goes out and meets Larry Ellison, who I've heard about him.
And is it Tim Draper and Tim Draper? Who's the Draper guy?
It's not Draper. It's Tim. Someone else.
One of the other VC guys.
Don someone else. Anyway, but it's another,
cowboy hat guy.
Yeah, the cowboy hat guy.
Yeah.
And they don't understand. They understand technology. Where in software, there's lots of things you can do. There's if it's not built, and you want to build something using software, you can typically figure out a way to do lots of things.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to body's physiology, it doesn't. You are very, very limited.
One thing that was interesting on the recent 2020 that came out about the Dropout was they made the fact of saying that it wasn't VC that was funding Theranos. It was kind of like these political figures and these well-known people that are just, wealthy. Mm-hmm. And when she was going to these VC firms, she was being turned away because I think a lot of them saw through the technology, but there was so much hype around the box, the product, and everything that she was able to secure funding through other means. Yes. One of those things. And to your point from a couple minutes ago, I think the show they make a lot of assumptions about her personality. Because the only thing that we really know about Elizabeth Holmes are the interviews that she put out there. It's those small little interactions that we hear from other people, but you don't know what she was like in private life because she was a very private person outside of those interviews.
And those interviews were very curated.
Mm-hmm.
She put in the interviews what she wanted to put in the interviews. Anyway, so I could talk about it with forever. I mean, the voice, it was so wild to me. But as someone, when you're starting a business, the VCs went out and they asked for a few things. What you and I have we've pitched a little bit. They ask, show me your traction,
mm-hmm.
show me how it works. And if you don't have those two things, VC firms, I don't think they're necessarily interested in you unless they have a long-term view or they have some type of understanding of what goes into your product.
Yeah.
And this was also during the days of Facebook. This is during the days of these unicorns really popping up.
All VC firms were looking for the next thing.
Yeah.
That it was just exponential growth.
Mm-hmm.
And two, the growth of Theranos is what you saw is as soon as you had like one big name investor and you had two big name investors, everybody immediately gave credit to that company. And, there was so much hype around it that you just saw this money flowing in to the point where Theranos was valued, at $9 billion. I think what it was in 2016. My years with this are off, but
up to like 11 billion.
Yeah. Another show that I just saw on your watch list, and it was one that I started watching last night, was Gaming Wall Street.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for those of you listening, Gaming Wall Street is a show that is on HBO Max, and it's just a quick little docu-series on the whole Wall Street bets on Reddit and the rise and fall of the GameStop stock and everything that goes around into, shorting a stock. I watched the first episode last night, and this whole scenario is one that just fascinates me. Mm-hmm. I was part of it in 2020 when all this was going on, and so just being able to look back at it, and it's kind of a crazy concept that you can have these retail investors kind of, rally together and start. They just rallied together and they went after the hedge funds, and it had tangible results. So the fact where this GameStop stock that was selling for $8 was selling upwards of $400, $500 is pretty incredible, and they're short squeezing these hedge funds to cover their shorts. So just a really interesting documentary for those of you that are into that whole scenario.
Yes. I haven't seen. I just watched the trailer on this, but it is still. I mean, I love the idea. This is what hedge funds do. They short stocks. They get out on CNBC Money or whatever, and they say, "Oh, you're gonna want to not buy this."
Yeah.
This is. They can do things to hurt public confidence in a stock, and they did this with, I guess, GameStop, which I imagine must have some type of following, and they're everywhere. The GameStop, at least around the United States where I've been, they're in strip malls and whatnot, and these people said, "We're not gonna let's rise up against these hedge funds."
The whole basis of Melvin Capital was, GameStop. You think of the brick and mortar store, and video games for the most part you can download digitally right now, which is true. But that was the whole basis of their theory, not even considering what actions GameStop could take in order to better set themselves up for future growth and everything. So it was just, it's a brick and mortar store. People can download video games now. I'm going to short the stock. Yeah. And then they get on CNBC, they get on Mad Money, and they say, this stock is really overvalued right now. GameStop is on the brink of bankruptcy, so, we're shorting the stock. Or not even saying we're shorting the stock, but in the background, shorting the stock. And then you have, I don't want to say his name because this is a family-friendly podcast, but a user on Reddit who came out with his own theory, came out with his own research, basically laying out all of the reasons why GameStop was actually an undervalued stock. And at the beginning on Reddit, people were saying, dude, you're crazy. You're going to lose all your money. This is stupid. You're autistic. Yeah. All of this stuff, all of the things that Reddit says to other people, because Reddit can be a not so friendly place. But then after a few months, you start seeing a slow growth in the GameStop stock. And then you had a lot of Reddit users that too just wanted to kind of stick it to those hedge funds. And they're like, we're going to rally behind this stock. Yeah. We're going to buy it. We're going to hold. We're going to diamond hands. And then to the point where as more and more people started buying it, hedge funds started shorting it more and more and more, and people weren't selling. Yeah. So when those shorts expire, what do the hedge funds have to do? Well, they have to buy the stock, and then that's when you see the exponential growth of the stock. And it's just super interesting, and it's something that's still going on today. GameStop is still one of those stocks that is talked about on social media, but I think a lot of that hype behind it is really gone. But I think for the most part, Reddit has kept GameStop in business for at least another 5 to 10 years just as a result of that. And another one too that they rallied around was AMC. And the other thing that the documentary does, it goes into kind of how Robinhood halted trading on GameStop and AMC.
Which is not cool, right?
Yeah, it's not. And
that's unfree market.
Yeah. But if you actually look, and I didn't know this, but if you look in the terms of service on Robinhood, it actually says that they maintain the right to halt trading on any stock at any point. So it actually was in their terms of service that they can do this. Really? Okay. Now, I think a lot of public perception after the fact kind of destroyed that company. It's still a company that exists today. Yeah.
I think they increased.
Yeah, but I think for a lot of retail investors, it turned them off. Yeah. Me, myself, I completely stopped using Robinhood after they did that, and I moved all of my fun money, my gambling funds, over to Webull, and I know a lot of people have done that as well. So, any other thoughts on this documentary? I think it's really interesting so far.
I'm definitely going to watch it.
Yeah.
But okay. Before we go out, I noticed you and your wife both liked Nathan For You yesterday.
Yeah.
I just have to say.
All right, go off.
This is one of the funniest. I guess it's a parody on the business improvement, like bar. What's that one bar?
Bar Rescue, yeah.
It's a parody on those types of bar rescues. And this guy Nathan Fielder, who I'm going to show you guys a terrible, terrible photo. I met right outside of Chipotle in Washington, D.C. in 2017. He is one of the funniest.
Yeah.
This is one of the funniest shows I've ever watched in my life. And I'll tell you how I found out about it. One day in my Washington, D.C. condo, I was asleep on the couch. And back in those days, movies would just play through Hulu. If you just had Hulu playing, it would move to another movie that it think you would. So your TV would be playing constantly, and it's like 3 a.m. I'm passed out on the couch, and I hear this business plan to plug Quiznos in a date. I'm like, what? So this guy just sits down in a date, and I'm gonna completely butcher this, but he's like, "Hey, are you enjoying your delicious warm crispy Quiznos sandwich?" I thought this was the most funny. This was the most funny idea for a TV show, and I've actually come up with more funny. I think funny apps I would use in a show like this.
Yeah.
Like things that are just completely ridiculous. My second favorite. This is my favorite of all time. Nathan goes to consult for a pizza business that's struggling, and he says, "You know what? Let's reduce the amount of time it takes to deliver pizza, and if we fail to deliver the pizza on time, we'll give you a free pizza." Right? So the idea is they set like 20 minutes. We'll deliver within 20 minutes, or we give you a free pizza. So the idea is they're going to be late, but they're going to give you a free pizza. It's about this big, so it's like a 2-inch pizza.
I watched 2 this morning. One of them there was this lady that owned a company that did horseback riding, and so his idea was, well, there's about half the U.S. population that can't access horseback riding because they're morbidly obese. So his idea was to get weather balloons and strap weather balloons to the back of morbidly obese people so that they could be under the weight limit to ride horses.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it ended up working. Like, it got him under the weight limit, and you just see this big dude on the back of a horse, and he has like 3 weather balloons tied to him. And at the end of it, Nathan is talking to the business owner, and he's like, congratulations. This is an awesome step for the company, an awesome step for equality in the United States and everything. And the business owner is just like, I don't want to do this. Like, this wasn't my idea and all this stuff. Just great interaction. And then the other one was, what did he do? There was a moving company that couldn't get enough, or like they were having an issue with labor because the cost of labor was getting so expensive. So his idea was, let's create a fitness craze around lifting everyday items in order to get in shape. So he hired this dude that was a gym rat, an older gym rat, and basically created this crazy bogus book talking about how over the past 10 years he lost 100 pounds just by lifting everyday items. And sure enough, there are a few people. He ends up getting on like dozens of local news outlets and talking about how this is the new craze where if you lift boxes, if you lift tables, lamps, and all this stuff, you can lose 100 pounds. And so the whole theory was, well, if you can create a fitness craze, then the moving company could start just hiring people that want to get in shape. Right. So just a hilarious concept and stuff that I would never even think about. But I love this show.
So funny. That one is just, it is one of those deep guttural laughter.
Yes.
Like Murderville on Netflix. You just laugh so hard because it's uncomfortable to a degree. I think we'll talk about Batman next time.
Yeah.
I had a couple friends watch Batman, and one of my friends, Blair, actually he said, his friend Brett said, it's a cross between the old school Batman, because Batman was originally a detective.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I totally forgot, or didn't know that. And the movie Seven. So it's super dark, but I guess we'll get in. How are we on time right now?
We're at about 35 minutes so far, so we've had some good conversation so far.
But we can go on ahead and close it out. Did we want to talk about West Point? Because I know, Trent, you went to West Point.
Yeah, this is kind of an uncomfortable subject for me right now. Yeah. For those of you that didn't see the news over the past weekend, there were some cadets down on spring break in Florida. They had a little too much fun, did some booger sugar.
Yeah.
And the cocaine that they took was laced with fentanyl. So 4 of them, it's not a funny subject, so I'll try to refrain from being funny. But yeah, 4 of them ended up overdosing on fentanyl. I think they're all still alive, thank God, and in the hospital right now. 2 cadets that didn't take the drugs at all. They tried resuscitating them, and they ended up overdosing from fentanyl too, just from doing mouth to mouth. So just a crazy story. And these West Point cadets were also football players. So one, I hope they recover. I hope they, make a full recovery, but they're not going to be West Point cadets here much longer, which is just terrible. So any West Point cadets out there, any of my friends that I went to school with, just don't do drugs, okay?
Your PSA, don't do drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Stay away. You don't know what's in them.
Yeah.
And I saw the guy that they bought the drugs from.
Did they actually know who the guy was? They found him?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. That's crazy. I didn't see that.
But you probably could have made your judgment call at that point in time. Said, this is probably not the person I want to buy drugs from.
Yeah.
So, sorry about that, man. That's a really unfortunate story.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show we need to be extra cautious where we buy our drugs. But don't do drugs. Okay, man. Well... I think we've had some awesome discussions.
Yeah,
you and I.
Good episode.
I think during this whole episode, I've kind of been scrolling through MindGrapes, and at the end, I'll just show if you're still with us, I'll just show you some of the features. So if you're on this universe page, do you see my phone? So if you're on the universe page, you can scroll through and see what's kind of trending, what people are liking, and if you like, you can hit in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, you can hit the sound button and really just watch a bunch of trailers of what people are liking. By the way, The Rescue, if you haven't seen it on Disney Plus, is phenomenal. The next screen is the friend screen. This is where you can see what your friends are watching. Up along the top, up along that top row, you can go and you can search your friends. You can see all your followers. You can go to you can see groups. You can even create groups. One of my favorite groups right now is Frauds and Scandals. It's documentaries about hucksters and people who are, people who rip a lot of other people off. For instance, I'll show you. I Care a Lot. I put that in there. That probably shouldn't be in there. But the Tinder Swindler, Inventing Anna. We talked about them. Those are great. It's great fodder for this group. And then all of your @ mentions. This is basically a feature we took from Twitter where if people mention you in a post, that's where this goes.
Yeah, it's just gives the capability people to make recommendations to you on shows or movies they think you'll like.
And from this screen, in the upper right-hand corner of the poster, for instance, Nathan, for you, there's a little TV. That shows what you're currently watching. And I'm about to embarrass myself, but... I am a married man, so this is what I'm currently watching right now.
There you go. Just got to own it.
I watched it yesterday. I don't want to. I mean, this goes to show how good of a husband I am.
Is it terrible? Is it really bad?
It is such trash. It's such pure trash. It's like a curated modeling contest with a bunch of kids who didn't go to college, but some are like billionaires or super rich. It's just very strange. Like they have parties and there's very luxurious and pretty, and they're in Siesta Key, which is a beautiful part of the world. But I mean, the conversations these people have, it is just out of control. Anyway, so here I'm on my profile. You can see I have an A+. Which means if you click on the A+, you can see your total score. I have the top score you can have right now, but let me just go to Trent's profile.
I'm kind of happy about my A.
Trent has an A, and he has 33 points to an A+.
I'm almost there.
Here's a few ways you can get a higher score. You can refer friends, you can gain followers, you can start groups. We need you to go out and refer friends. MindGrapes is so much more fun when you are with your friends. So please go out and do that. And then probably the most used button is the search button. You can search movies and series. Here you can see what's trending. You can see the weekly top 10 on MindGrapes.
Great function is that you can see what streaming service it's actually streaming on.
Yes.
And you can click on the Netflix button right next to the show. That'll take you to the Netflix app on your phone. You can watch it. It just really makes it so much more efficient when you're trying to figure out what to watch.
My mom said she was able to go click on that Netflix button and then save the movie to her Netflix app so she could watch it on the plane.
It's awesome.
So that was really cool. And then if you go to People, once again, you can see everyone on MindGrapes, and then you can actually go through popular actors and actresses like Anna de Armas, Zendaya, Paul Dano, Tom Holland, and you can see their body of work. Like if we were to go to Ryan Reynolds, you can read more about Ryan Reynolds through this is basically his Wikipedia page.
Yeah.
You can see every film he's been in. You can see a bunch of images, and then you can read any news. There's celebrity news on it.
It's awesome. There are so many intricacies of the app and so much functionality that it has, and really you could spend so much time just exploring actors, movies, actresses, news. And one thing too, we're really hoping that this app takes off to the point where those actors and actresses start getting on the app and they can interact with their fans and they can say, hey, this is a project that we're working on, keep an eye out. So tons of room for growth with this app.
And then the last thing, the most important thing is your contacts. Or invite friends. So you can come in, and if you were to invite a friend, you can invite over text, or you can click this other button and invite other people through Slack or Facebook, you name it. So please help share the app. We hope that you enjoy it, but please help share the app. Please tell your friends about it. And we're going to have more and more features coming out that make this app even better. So with that said,
good episode. Thank you guys for listening, and we will be back next week.
Thank you so much.